Good afternoon and welcome to today's program titled Forecasting the Future of Patient-Friendly Billing Experiences. My name is Amanda Norris and I'm the Revenue Cycle Editor for Health Leaders and your moderator for today's webinar. Today's program is sponsored by Salucro Visa. Thank you to our sponsor and to you and our audience for giving us your time and attention. Our program will be 60 minutes in length. Note that an on-demand version of this program will be available approximately 1 day after the completion of the event and can be accessed using the same login link that you used for the live program. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping details. First, to ensure you can see all the content for the event, please maximize your event window and be sure to adjust your computer volume settings and/or PC speakers for optimal sound quality. Second, you will find a resources list for today's webinar in the upper right side of your screen. Here we have listed the webinar slide deck and other materials from our supporter for you to interact with. Third, at the bottom of your console are multiple widgets you can use. To submit a question, click on the Q&A widget. It may be open already and appear on the left side of your screen. You may submit questions at any time during the presentation. However, please note that it's likely your questions will not be answered until the Q&A portion of the program. You should experience any technical difficulties during today's program and need assistance, please click on the Help widget, which has a question mark icon and covers common technical issues. Finally, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists for today's discussion. Rebecca Grossman, SVP of Strategy and Business Development at Salucro. Bill Dobbins, SVP and Head of Business Development, New and Expand Acceptance with Visa. And Belinda Bennett, Patient Access Director at Community Health Systems. Thank you all for taking the time to speak with us today. And with that, let's get into our discussion. So with the recent spotlight on the patient financial experience, why has it become imperative for organizations to streamline their billing processes? Rebecca, would you like to start today?
Sure thing, and great question to start with today, and thanks everyone for joining. So to put it bluntly, I think for providers that don't get it right, there's significant risk of patients leaving and patients kind of churning from the organization. So just to elaborate on that a little further, I was at a conference last week and heard from several of the largest healthcare providers here in the U.S., for-profit, non-for-profit, and one of the constant themes that we continue to hear is the focus on, how do we keep patients in network and reduce patient leakage, especially in the midst of the what I would call the evolving competitive landscape with concierge medicine. So, each and every patient is so valuable to these organizations. On the flip side, our recent survey just showed that, I think it was something along the lines of 41% of patients would consider leaving their provider due to a poor billing experience. Take a step back and think about that. That's a pretty alarming metric that could imply, hey, I've got this clinician who I've got a great relationship with, I've gotten great clinical care from this organization, but if I get my bill 6 months down the road, it's super disjointed, it's a bad experience, I'd consider going elsewhere. So, providers that are really wanting to, keep that focus on reducing patient leakage, keeping patients in network, and continuing to grow their patient population, really have to be keenly focused on making sure that patient billing process is as streamlined and friendly as possible.
Great, yeah. So Belinda, what are your thoughts?
I have to agree, because we see those patients that, let's say they've had surgery and for whatever reason we have messed the billing up or their statements haven't went through, and they'll say, we're just not coming back. Being a provider in a small town, we're it. So you don't want them going to the next town. You want to keep those patients, happy. You want to keep them satisfied. So it's real important to make this as streamlined as possible and easy for them to understand. That's just, for us, again, we're a small hospital in a small community. We need those patients and they need us. We don't want them going next door to the other people. So I have to agree with Rebecca. If you don't satisfy them and get this as streamlined as possible, you're going to lose. And then there goes your financial stability.
Bill, did you have anything to add?
I agree. I mean, we see it in all different types of billing centric verticals. The stickiness and managing the stickiness of your patient or consumer, it's critical to the lifeblood of your organization.
So how has the implementation of the digital patient engagement and payment platforms, like such as a patient portal, improved the patient experience? Belinda, do you want to start? How has it helped your organization?
We have struggled. The area that we are in are the more older population or the elderly. So when you have a lot of your Medicare clientele, a lot of them do not understand the portal. A lot of them don't even have a computer. Nowadays, you do have some that do carry their iPads or their iPhones or whatever, but it's so hard for the older population to understand how the patient portal actually works. The younger generation's right on it because they're all about their cell phones and the latest and greatest technology. But the older population is like, no. So even if they do have a cell phone and they get a text from our organization saying your payment is due, they have no idea what's going on. So we are struggling with that at this point so we have to take a step back and learn how can we educate them better? How can we, teach them to even opt out of the digital side of it? So it's a struggle for us right now.
Yeah, Rebecca, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, just echoing Belinda's comments. There's definitely something to be said about striking a balance between having those, innovative, kind of market-leading payment platforms to offer patients as consumers of healthcare, while offering, payment options and modalities that might be kind of more familiar or comfortable for more of an aging patient population. But I would say largely for, our customers specifically who have done this right and worked with us to implement those new digital platforms, they've seen a dramatically improved patient financial experience as a result of that implementation process. At the end of the day, a lot of our providers are looking for feedback from their patients. And one constant theme we continue to hear is patients want their online bill pay process to be as simple as shopping on Amazon. We hear it in RFP after RFP after RFP. So, I would say as an industry, we still have a ways to go to get everyone kind of up on the latest and greatest technology platforms for patient payment acceptance and really leveraging those digital modalities. But we're inching our way there, and by and large, those that have done it right have seen a much improved patient financial experience.
And Bill, what do you have to add?
Well, I would say payment is a part of this. But it's the value of the platform, what the patient or consumer can gather. I talk sometimes about payment is an invisible part. It's just a convenience added to this exchange between hospital and doctor and patient. And the better that is, it makes for a more seamless experience and a more trusted experience as it relates to entering your payment credentials and ultimately completing the transaction efficiently for patient and provider.
Great, thank you. So what can healthcare providers learn from the digital strategies of the retail world, and how must they adapt as retail leaders begin to enter the healthcare space? Rebecca, I know you just talked a little bit about Amazon. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would say a big lesson learned and something to, that providers should look to mimic is just continue to focus on innovation. In my role, and I think with a lot of my clients as well, you always want to be looking kind of 3 to 5 years ahead of, how do we prepare for, what are going to be the latest and greatest payment trends in the industry, and how do we bring those to healthcare? And then second would be just find the right technology partner. Here and there, we've got, different providers or partners or organizations who are like, oh, we can build this, we can do this internally. I think it's really important to find the right technology partners to support these digital payment initiatives that, really focus exclusively in this space and can deliver a really great solution to keep providers focused on delivering great patient care.
Great. So Belinda, I know you said that you're a smaller organization, but what are your thoughts on this?
I have to agree. It would be so easy just to go out and pay your bill, just tap Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. It's just so easy to do that. I have recently had to make a payment to a physician's office who didn't have online bill pay. And I was kind of astounded. I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting because we are kind of like, it's just 2022. So again, I have to agree that, we have to build to we're with the Amazon. We're with the other, companies. So we are the latest and greatest. We have to make it easy. And again, you have to go back to that physician hospital relationship. If you upset that physician's patient and they come back, you have to make it, user friendly. So I totally agree. We have to be the Amazons of the world.
Yeah. Bill, did you have anything to add?
Well, Rebecca shouldn't be talking about MasterCard, but I'll let that go. What I would say, if you think about the experiences, whether it's during COVID, post-COVID, consumers have shifted to a digital-first mindset. You think about the things that have grown since the pandemic. You've got, explosion in buy now, pay later, expansion in contactless, Amazon Go stores where you just simply pick up what you want. So there's an expectation out there that I think industries that don't try to meet the customer where they are destined to have problems. That, the demands from all age groups, including, Gen X and baby boomer, it's a mindset and an expectation that healthcare needs to meet.
Right. So, Bill, what are your thoughts here? Like, what technology has been helping to improve the patient billing experience within healthcare?
I think there's a couple of things. Visa recently announced that we now have over 4 billion tokens, network tokens that are in the market. So when we talk about, just for anybody who's not familiar, when an individual, a patient puts their credential on file, strong organizations tokenize that number so the customer's actual card number is not in the wild. It is protected by tokens. So a strong utilization of tokens, we've seen that expanding to the tune of 4 billion, as I mentioned. I also think things like our partial authorization service, where if a consumer using their credential doesn't have enough funds on the account, you can have a more seamless experience where you take what's available and you message them that they have to, come up with another form of tender for the difference. The addition of all payments and wallets, in particular, the Apple, Google Pays, the browsers now with embedded credentials. I mean, these are all technologies and technology extensions that are really helping the billing experience in a card not present manner. But then if you think about card present, the just sheer explosion of tap and pay right now in the U.S., around the world, 1 out of every 2 transactions on the Visa network are not dipped or swiped, they're tapped. So it's a technology that's creating a more expected experience as consumers are going in for their copays as well.
So Belinda, what are your thoughts on this?
I have to agree. On the patient side, if you go into the portal and you're able to look at your bill, or you're able to at the same time, bounce it against your medical record, for them, that's a win-win. So, as we continue to improve in technology, what's next? I mean, it's, as they say, the ceiling is just a limit. So with us, when that patient's calling, is like, well, I'm looking at my bill online. I'm like, well, ain't that cool? I don't have to send you an itemized statement in the mail. I don't have to go over it with you because now you have your itemized statement on one side. And then on the other side, you have the medical record to bounce it off. Yes, I got the CBC. Yes, I got the x-ray. Or there's like, I didn't get that. What is that? So for us, I love it. Because I'm all about change. So the more technology is out there for the healthcare, person to give them that bill that they've wanted, the better off we are.
Rebecca, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely agree with Bill and Belinda. Just to add a few more, I think texting has been tremendously helpful in helping to really elevate the overall billing experience. The fact that providers can save their Visa card on file and just pay completely in an SMS flow is is awesome. And, definitely leaps and bounds kind of beyond where we were as an industry 5-10 years ago. Let's see, kind of on the same texting theme, even giving providers the ability to kind of text like a context embedded link to a patient. One of the things we've seen with a lot of providers since the onset of COVID is, a lot of these collection teams are all migrating to a work from home environment. So, contactless payments are great. There's been a lot of evolution there, but at the same time, there's still a need for provider initiated payments. And rev cycle leaders and IT leaders don't necessarily want their staff to have, payment devices at home, if you will. So being able to just quickly text a link to a patient to kind of to make a payment through a pre-filled payment page has been really instrumental. And then lastly, more of like an underlying theme from an IT standpoint, I would say, just the broader adoption and utilization of smart on buyer technology and real-time APIs has lended to a more real-time experience to support patient billing in general. So not necessarily waiting on batch files behind the scenes or clunky HL7 integration. So I think that's been pretty helpful for the industry as well.
Great. So what are some of the key strategies to implementing billing and statement solutions, and what are some common challenges that revenue leaders can face? Rebecca, do you want to start? I know you just talked a little bit about the texting. What are some key strategies there?
Yeah, gosh, when it comes to implementing new billing and statement solutions, I think a lot of providers can be wholly overwhelmed. Like these are big projects and they can mean pretty tremendous changes for an organization. And, largely there are some things that providers may want to change and some things that they might like about their current process, whether that's statement design or the cadence of outreach going out to their patients. So as a strategy, I always recommend just surveying your patients, get some feedback, what's working, what's not working, and then kind of bring that into the fold with the new implementation. And in terms of challenges with that process, I think anytime you're looking to implement a bigger project, especially at a healthcare organization, it can take time to get resources to get buy-in for these enterprise projects. So start small, start with a proof of concept, show that hey, text to pay and text statements and saving these on file, all these strategies really work and are really helpful. We've shown success in this department. Now let's roll it out to the broader organization.
Linda, what are your thoughts? I know that your organization recently implemented some new technology. So what are some key strategies?
For us, the way I see it, or the way that I'm going into this, is education. My frontline staff have got to understand how it works inside and out. I have to understand how it works inside and out, because once we feel good with that technology, then we're able to explain it a little bit better to the patient. It's all about communication and education for us.
Great. And Bill, did you have anything to add?
I would just say, I agree. Communicating probably more difficult in certain verticals. We've seen some degree of incentivizing the behavior that you want your consumers or patients to follow, to ultimately, suppress their paper billing process. But I think it's having everyone knowledgeable, championing the change, making sure it's the right thing for the patient. I think that's a path to success.
So, Belinda, you had said that education is definitely a key strategy, but what were some of the common challenges that you faced or are facing when implementing technology like this?
Right now, again, we're back to that older population, and grandma's calling and she's like, I never got my statement. I need my statement. I have to have that piece of paper to pay that claim, and then trying to explain to her, well, we're going to a paperless society, or, this is our new foundation, and they're not liking this one bit. So that is a big struggle for us. Or, okay, great, we're paperless and you're texting me once a month. Well, I missed one in there. I don't get to set that on payment arrangements. They're missing the interaction with that person a lot of times because they have questions. So we're seeing that, people are really kind of upset not knowing. So again, we're doing that drop back, let's re-educate, let's reach out to them, let's explain a little bit more. So we're in this campaign now of, we have cards everywhere. This is our, our new statement format. This is what we're doing. You have a question, call us, kind of thing. So right now it's just everyone getting on board with how we do things. And again, the older population is really struggling with that. So, my mom was out there too. She's like, I don't understand why is this happening? So us as being the younger generation need to reach out to them, and us being, the healthcare provider, and really teach them how we're doing things now.
Yeah. So not only do you have to educate your staff, but you have to educate the patients as well, right?
Exactly. That's exactly where it starts. I mean, you can sit and talk to them all day, but if they don't understand it, it's not going to work for you. So yeah, it's all about education to and from, and your employees can learn from your patients also. So, it's a win-win.
Yeah. So Rebecca and Bill, are you guys seeing the same thing with other providers, same kind of challenges?
I am.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
Nothing from me on that one. I think Belinda really provided great perspective and hit the nail on the head with that.
Agree.
Great. Good. So what can healthcare providers do to ensure that they're doing their proper due diligence when choosing a payment process to keep patient confidence high and more payments move online? Rebecca, do you have any advice here?
Sure. Being on the vendor side, we get these questions all the time. So I think talking to other healthcare providers and clients in the industry, if you're looking at going with a certain solution for kind of the payments or billing process, what was their experience like? How did the implementation go? How has patient feedback been? I think that is, critically important. A lot of times you can get that through case studies, but also I think through word of mouth and talking directly to other clients is always excellent if providers can do that. In terms of other due diligence, payments, as we all know, is such a sensitive area, especially in healthcare. So I would say a lot of times these projects are really being driven by revenue cycle, sometimes treasury, but make sure you're connected with your IT counterparts as well. Make sure the vendor you're selecting for payments and billing is high trust certified, PCI level 1 compliant. Again, being in such a kind of sensitive space and, rolling out these big projects across an organization, you want to make sure that you are doing your diligence to make sure that your vendors of choice are deploying the highest levels of security and compliance really across the board.
Yeah. Bill, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you need to make sure that whoever you're choosing has a good grasp of the payment ecosystem, not as it exists today, but where it's going into the future. I mean, you want someone who not only has the network tokens that I mentioned a moment ago and can articulate the benefits of that to alleviate concerns of a patient, but as we start thinking about alt tender or disbursements, if that becomes necessary, you want a platform that will not require you to find a new platform provider 3 years from now when crypto is being used to make payments. So it's really something to think about on the front end. And as Rebecca just mentioned, it's a fast-changing market. But if you pick the right provider, one who can help you future-proof your point of sale, so to speak, you'll be in a lot better position.
Right. So, Belinda, I know you mentioned education, but what else can providers do to make sure they're doing their due diligence when you're moving towards this?
We network a lot. In our state, I'm very big in the HFMA, so we're constantly networking. And again, I'm going to go out there and look for references. Anytime that I'm looking at a new vendor, I'm going to call, ask the vendors like, oh, give me 3 or 4 of your top hospitals that you're in and that you're using. So I'll reach out to those hospitals and say, okay, what's your pros and cons? How well are they doing? Because I need to know. I mean, a lot of times, I'm going to hear that spill from the vendor themselves, but until you truly know, that platform or you understand where they are, it just makes it so much easier if someone can give them a really good reference in a way. So I'm really big on networking. I'm really big on going out there and asking other providers, how well are they working for you? Where do you see, they're failing or they're succeeding. So that's my whole thing, is I'm a big network person.
Great, thank you. So how do we meet the demands of today's consumers without leaving behind, Belinda, like you said, the older generations or demographics that don't have access to digital tools? So Belinda, how are you kind of dealing with that?
Again, we have this new change here lately, so we're really trying to work through some of those issues. For us, I think it's education again. We just have to educate our patients or their family members, because there's a lot of times there's a daughter or son that, that you might be able to reach out to and explain to them how we're working, through some of these issues now. So for us, it's always going to come back to education for us, because I think that is our major goal right now. Educate our patients, and then eventually everyone will get on board with it, and it'll be so much easier.
Yeah. Rebecca, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, a couple things. And again, I think Belinda's hit on this a few times, but just, making sure that whatever technology you're using to kind of meet the demands of your patient population, your consumer base, making sure you're not leaving out any particular kind of patient segment. So I think it's really easy for a lot of us to be focused on, kind of the latest and greatest online bill pay solutions, and how do I get Apple Pay and Google Pay and integrated third-party financing, for example. How do I start thinking about crypto? To Bill's point, let's say 3 years from now, should that become more pervasive in healthcare? But we can't forget about the patients who still want to call in and pay over the phone, who want to mail in a check. So I think it's just really important that providers make sure that wherever they're moving in terms of that payment and billing ecosystem and those vendor partners, they can still check all of those boxes, even if they're not, the sexiest of payment types, for example. So, integrated lockbox payments, cash drawer, for example, it's still pretty important to have all under one umbrella. And then one kind of other thing we're seeing that I think is really relevant to this is, the importance of keeping all that in one ecosystem. I think oftentimes what happens is providers will say, oh, hey, we're going to implement this new digital solution for online bill pay, and it's a completely different vendor payment ecosystem. And then to Bill's point, talking about the importance of tokenization, then you've got tokens sitting between two systems. Patients might have payment plans with two different vendors that you're now trying to manage. So I think really, again, making sure that providers are checking all of those boxes for each and every tender type that their patients are going to require is super important. And we're trying as best as possible to keep that all under one IT umbrella.
Bill, what are your thoughts?
Well, before this, I did a little bit of research. I think one of the things that benefits healthcare is the sort of halo from other categories. I was looking, and Gen X as a category has increased card usage over the past 3 years from 60 to 65%, and baby boomers have increased from 54 to 57. And you have all these other biller type categories that are moving to digital billing solutions, card on file. So I agree with the point that education is key. And I know that healthcare and healthcare information is much more detailed and specific than utility, but I think the benefit of it happening across multiple verticals will make this a little easier as you deploy it into the healthcare environment.
Great, thank you. So when should providers be asking about a patient's billing communication preference, and what effect do you think this has on revenue? Bill, did you want to start this one?
Well, I mean, it should be a part of in my opinion, and as part of the enrollment process. I mean, there's the preference, whether it be text or email or a digital mechanism for reviewing the bill, but then it's also about the expectations around payment. A card on file allows for communication with the patient that the post-adjudicated amount will be charged to the card on file not to exceed X. So, I know we've mentioned education and communication a couple times. A more straightforward communication with the patient based on them receiving, trustworthy information and their relationship with the provider, That's going to create a better experience to shorten days outstanding and meet the customer where they are and how they want to be communicated with.
Great. And Belinda, what are your thoughts here?
Ours all has to start in the registration process. Either it be the pre-reg or face to face on the day of their procedure, or whatever they're having done that day. We have to start right then. We need to get the correct phone number. We need to get the correct email address. So it really has to start there. And for us, we have a lot of these tools that's able to say, okay, after your insurance pays, your copay deductible is XYZ. So for us, we got to be able to make sure that, number one, we have this information from them. We're able to give them the proper information, and to be able to increase that revenue, it's got to be correct. So for us, we got to make sure that those vendors are giving us, the latest, the greatest technology to make sure we're pinging off that Blue Cross Blue Shield that says, okay, you have a $500 deductible. So at the time of service, when, we set this up, we can say, okay, you owe $500 today, and we're able to take that payment. Or they're able to go out online and set that on the payment arrangement side, and they're comfortable and they feel that that is safe. That is a big thing. In today's world, everyone's scared to death to give that number out. We personally do not keep any number in-house anywhere, no credit card information. So what we do is we teach them to go out online to the portal, and they're able to put that in for themselves. Like Bill said, it's kind of like that token thing that keeps it safe. We don't do it on our side. We let them do it on their side, so they feel that's a little more safer. So that's where we're headed or at.
Great. So always at the front end at registration?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Rebecca, what are your thoughts?
Super similar. I mean, my short and sweet response to this would be providers should be asking about a patient's billing and communication preferences as early as humanly possible. I think it's really critical to capture that up front. And I think any other, ways for patients to opt in or opt out kind of on the back end in a post-adjudication setting, that's really a nice to have. But it truly needs to be happening, at the point of patient intake. I mean, we're even seeing several of our clients and the providers and partners we work with, have like opting in to e-statements and electronic communications as the default. So if they don't want that, if they want a paper statement, they have to basically go into their patient portal and opt out. So we're seeing an interesting shift there. And I think there are enough studies out there to show that kind of doing it this way, absolutely supports cash acceleration and reductions of bad debt as well. So yeah, as early as possible.
Do you think it's becoming more common for providers just to automatically enroll everyone electronically?
I think it is. I think it's still, I've heard from a provider the term used a little confrontational, maybe with different internal stakeholders, but yeah, I mean that's been my experience recently with my healthcare providers. I've sat in a few other panels, and I think that is certainly becoming much more commonplace than it used to be. Yeah. And obviously the cost reduction implications with, the rising cost of postage and paper and patient statements is pretty substantial as well.
Yeah. So Belinda, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you do the same thing? Do you automatically enroll in electronic statements, or do you give your patients a choice, like a hybrid?
Well, in the beginning, it was flip the switch, everybody went. And now we're backing up, and now we're going to go into that. Let's give them that choice. So yeah, because it caused some animosity there for a little while, and my staff was pulling their hair out for a little while. So, but now it seems, now that we can give them the choice, I think it's working much better.
Okay. So what are some key questions revenue cycle leaders should ask when evaluating a new technology partner? Belinda, I'll start with you. Do you ever have any key conversations with other people in your organization about what you're expecting from a vendor?
Cost back to the facility or to the healthcare provider itself, because, if it's not cost worthy or cost effective, again, you're not going to win on this one. So it's just really important to ask, what's the cost? How much are you saving me? And you can save with, stamps and all that good stuff, your mail. That's outrageously expensive. I think I read something that it costs like $8 to $10 to send one statement today. By the time that you get someone to, work the account, move it over, the back end, not just, the 10 cents in the payment or for the paper. So, for us, it's, you got to be the latest and the greatest, and you got to be cheap. You got to be effective or, cost effective for us. So that's what we look at. Plus, you just got to be good at what you do.
Bill, did you have anything to add?
I would say, this is regardless of your industry. I think cost is key. I think I mentioned having a good idea on where the puck is going, so you're certain you're with someone who understands the industry and how to future-proof, and that someone, that level of expertise. There's more and more specialization going on, and I think that's a good thing. Making sure you're partnering with someone who specializes in the business you're in.
Right. And Rebecca, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. From a vendor standpoint, I would say any question is fair game. I think anytime a provider is evaluating a new technology partner, it's kind of good to get the full list out there. Oftentimes we get, sometimes we get 20 questions, sometimes we get 400. But I think that the two big ones are, show me your customer success metrics. I think cost is one piece, but like, what's the return on investment as well? And what have your other clients and partners seen in terms of revenue uplift, reduction to bad debt, cash acceleration results, cost reduction with statements, for example. So I think those are all critically important. And also, Bill talked a lot about kind of innovation and thinking several years ahead, but what's on your roadmap? So, a vendor could be great today, but if they're not keeping up with kind of the latest and greatest trends in the industry, whether that's related to security, compliance, payment innovation, the way the market's moving from an integration standpoint, that's important to have perspective on too. So I think really digging into those vendors and understanding what's on their roadmap specifically in the next 3 to 5 years is a good ask as well.
Perfect. Well, this actually brings me to my next question. What are some of your general predictions for contactless payment trends in the next 5 to 10 years, and what will this mean for revenue cycle? So what do you think, Rebecca?
Oh gosh, I would say hopefully we'll see some much broader adoption of auto pay technology. I know this is something that doesn't seem incredibly innovative when we think about how we use auto pay to kind of pay our other household bills and credit card bills and electric bills and whatnot. But I think in healthcare, we're still seeing this take off a bit. And I think that lends to just broader utilization of card on file. I think once we continue to make more progress as an industry with, better estimation technology and, getting estimates right and really broadening estimates outside of what may be more, elective services, if you will. We'll see broader adoption of auto pay, utilization of card on file, and hopefully from a revenue cycle standpoint, that really helps to reduce a lot of the administrative burden that's associated with back-end follow-up on payments. So hopefully that means more time for providers to really focus on kind of the patient experience holistically, other important activities, and not so much, calling in a post-adjudication setting to collect on an outstanding balance or having a vendor do that for you. So definitely some other, trends I could predict around, different innovative payment types and cryptocurrency and whatnot. But I think that's a really important one around auto pay and card on file for revenue cycle teams.
Great. So Bill, what are your thoughts?
I think one, I'm eager to see how the transparency legislation, how it deploys. I think that, the more patients feel confident that what they're paying is what they owe, I think this will take off. Do I see an environment where they will simply set their card on file and agree to a recurring amount? Maybe. But more likely there's a hybrid approach where they'll feel comfortable putting their card on file. They'll feel comfortable that because of transparency, they know that they won't owe more than X, and then the transaction will be completed. I think those things are happening today and will continue to happen. I see an environment where in other industries, they call it buy now, pay later. We can call it installment. For this, I think there will be a shift, particularly, as if there is significant for these discretionary procedures. I think there'll be a lot more buy now, pay later or installment in the space, which then will create that recurring, consistent payment experience. But that's how, if I were projecting today, that's how I see it going.
Great. And so, Belinda, what are your thoughts? What do you see happening, or what do you want to happen within the next 5 to 10 years for patient billing?
I kind of see it going the other direction from Bill. I see more people paying that upfront cost because for us, we may offer a discount if you pay your copays, deductibles, and coinsurance up front. And people nowadays, they need that discount. So for us, I think that what I'm thinking we're going to see is more people paying up front, which is really going to decrease the revenue cycle teams on the back end because you're not going to need that follow-up. You're not going to need that person that's going to be calling the insurance company, or you're not going to need that financial manager because it's all done up front. So, I've been in this for a long time, and I've seen more and more and more people pay up front, and more people are now paying with credit cards, debit cards, just the digital payment system. So it's totally changed. So as it evolves, I'm like, as it evolves, I think that you're just going to see the statements eventually just go away, because they're going to pay it up front. At least that's what I'm hoping. You remember, you did say hope.
You did, yes. Well, perfect. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our discussion. Thank you, everyone. And this brings us into our Q&A portion of the program. So we would now like to invite you to ask live questions of our panelists. So as a reminder, to submit a question, click on the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console player. It may be open already and appear on the left side of your screen. Please note that your questions will remain anonymous and will not be viewable by other audience members. So our first question is, have you found that when healthcare providers have their patients save cards on file, that they're more likely and willing to adopt digital billing methods? Bill, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, we are seeing greater adoption, for the use of the debit, credit cards, other payments when the card is secured on file. I think this is an industry where if you look at the 88+ billion in uncollected medical expenses, consumer out of pocket, this is the type of, when deployed properly, you're creating the experience so we don't have to chase obligations on the back end. So we see it working. I would say it's still not expansive enough. We need to be doing a better job. I harken back to the education and that upfront engagement, but we know that from other industries, when you do this effectively, it makes a difference.
Great. Rebecca or Belinda, did either of you have anything to add?
No, I totally agree with Richard. If they can save it, I think that on the patient's end, that would make it so much easier for them.
Yeah, Rebecca, any thoughts?
Echoing Bill's. Yeah, one quick one. I just wanted to call out that, a lot of times to fully leverage these advanced payment types, having a card on file is a prerequisite. So, in order to text to pay without ever leaving your phone and having that all go through an SMS flow, in order to enroll in auto pay, you have to have a card on file. So, I think in short, the answer is absolutely.
Great. So our next question is for Belinda. You talked a lot about education. So did you develop any written education for payments or for patients that they could use as a reference the next time they need to pay a bill?
Yes, our vendors actually went out and created that information that we were able to give out to patients. So we were very thankful for that because I'm not really good at, doing the direction side. So they reach out to us and give us all that information to educate our patients.
Right. And it's just, what do? You send a PDF or you email a PDF of what you offer?
Have cards. Yeah, we have cards throughout the facility. It's on our website. It's on our online bill pay. There's a menagerie of different ways to get it out there. One thing that I want to start doing is, and again, with this new format that we're going to and we're learning, is to hand this to a patient every single time they come in for at least the next couple months until everyone gets the hang of, the new system.
Right. Rebecca or Bill, did you have anything to add? Is there any certain type of education that you should really focus on when it comes to your patients?
I like the way that Belinda was just talking about it. I think that's right. I mean, networks like Visa have a ton of material for anybody who's interested. And if you're having trouble with your vendor, we have material that can be customized or delivered to you in a format that you can then make available to your patients. So I would say it's definitely something to work with your provider on.
Yeah.
And I was going to say the same as Bill, and Belinda obviously has great perspective from a provider standpoint, but yeah, lean on your vendors. If you're needing support with providing education to patients around the new billing or modalities as it relates to payment technology. And I think, having that education available, at the point of sale with different handouts on your website, within an FAQ on your patient portal for online bill pay. I think all of those are great options, and that your vendor should be supporting you with as well.
Great. So our next question is, what strategies can help minimize the default rate of your patients? So for example, patients not paying their health insurance. Bill or Rebecca, did either of you have any strategies for that?
Well, I mean, there are solutions out there today that'll give you an idea of the propensity to pay for a patient. I mean, depending on how you roll out the strategy, if as Rebecca was talking, if you're trying to get payment upfront, sort of a buyout, the more information you have, perhaps you can get payment before procedure takes place. If, however, you have a strong card on file where you know that the out-of-pocket will be below a certain amount, you can be just as effective securing the credential on file and then charging it when the procedure is done for the out-of-pocket. And you can protect yourself all along utilizing services like, we call it the Visa account updater. So if the card is lost or replaced, you get the new token, or other ways to make sure that it'll be good funds when you're ready to collect them. But I just think it depends on whichever way you want to go as a provider. There's a solution out there for you.
Great. And Rebecca, did you have any feedback on strategies that can help minimize the default rate? Or Belinda as well?
Yeah, I think a big one is analytics. This somewhat sits outside the realm of, payment acceptance and online bill pay, but I know a lot of providers are looking at either data in-house that their teams are generating or kind of third-party propensity to pay data just to understand, how can we segment our patient population and understand where we might have like a little more financial risk that we need to mitigate with, maybe having those, financial counseling or estimation discussions up front. So I think, really leveraging the data that you have available to you, whether that is in-house or through a third-party vendor, to really kind of understand your patient population and those different patient financial segments is a great strategy as well.
Great. Belinda, did you have anything to add? Does your organization do anything to help minimize this?
I think that I agree with Rebecca and Bill. They're spot on. That's pretty much the path that we're taking. It's just try to get it as clear as possible when they get here. So, yeah.
So our next question is, do you think there will be more requests for payment plans from patients versus like utilizing a high interest credit card? Belinda, did you want to start this one? Do you offer payment plans, or
we do.
What are your billing options?
Yeah, we do, because a lot of patients, today's credit cards can be astronomical. I mean, 24 to 30%, interest rate, where we don't have interest. so it's much easier for them to just make a, a monthly payment. So yeah, we offer payment arrangements all the time, which is a good thing. I mean, that's a win-win. Number one, we're getting payment. No, it's not the, entire amount up front. However, you're helping the patient. The patient's going to come back. So that that's a win-win. If you don't offer it, you're going to upset the patient. They're not going to come back. You're going to lose the revenue. So you want to keep your patients happy and you want to keep them. So, you don't need to make them $500 a month. You need to try to work with your patient and try to get it, where they can afford it and it doesn't bankrupt the hospital at the same point. So, yeah.
Great. Rebecca and Bill, do you see an uptick in these sort of payment plans?
Yeah, I certainly do. Gosh, technology here has come so far, and I think, I would argue that every provider should be offering some sort of in-house payment plan program with the technology that's available because, this day and age, there's really little to no need for any manual intervention. Payment plans should be fully automated, really flexible, available to patients online in a self-service setting. And I would say for those providers and CFOs specifically who aren't wanting to take on, that risk, if you will, to their balance sheet in-house, most payment vendors have great integrations with third-party financing companies. Non-recourse programs have also come a really long way. I think have been better adapted to meet the needs of larger healthcare providers and integrated delivery networks, not just kind of the smaller dental offices or, providers specializing in elective services. So, those rates I think have gotten a lot better. And so for providers not wanting to do as much in-house, maybe they just want to do, 12 or 24 months in-house and everything after that goes to a third-party vendor. I think third-party financing that's fully integrated with their existing systems is an excellent option and helps to deliver that cash acceleration as well.
And Bill, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. I would say from a visa or a network standpoint, payment plans are fine. What we're trying to get to is a point where installment is done off of the consumer's line of credit. The banks can pay the provider, right? You can get paid up front, and we'll manage that payment plan outside of your network. It's a win-win for everyone. The line's already established, the terms are in place. The bank can set aside the amount that the patient or customer wants to pay installments on it. So if we're effective, it'll put less burden on you to have those payment plans.
And is that usually offered interest-free to patients?
Well, it's usually something like a pay in four, or I think that's the most standard. So it would be, it's a separate line and it's 4 easy payments. I'm sure there's some degree of interest included.
Yeah. Okay, so our next question is, do you have any recommendations on how to increase auto pay enrollment? So Rebecca, do you want to start this one?
Sure, happy to. Let's see. So I would say promoting card on file, save a visa on file and doing that upfront and during the patient intake process and making it known to patients as consumers that, hey, would you like to save your card on file? And this will help kind of, anytime you come in to, make a co-payment or pay your bill online, this will be attached to your profile, is certainly a great starting point. We also, whether you're promoting auto pay or text to pay or e-statement enrollment, maybe also looking to leverage the real estate of your either your website or even your online bill pay solution to promote that to patients. So when they're logging in, for example, we typically do some sort of like scrolling carousel that our clients can customize to advertise, anything that's top of mind for them from a strategic revenue cycle standpoint, for example. So I think those are a couple of great options.
Great. Belinda, do you do anything in particular for auto pay?
For us, we fall under that PCI compliance rule, and we try never again to have that credit card number on file here. So we just try to sell it, back to your patient. Explain to them how it works, how easy it is. That's the big thing. If you can sell it to the patient, explain to them how easy it is, get them on board, then they're more apt to go ahead and set that auto pay so that, those payment arrangements are paid and you're done and you're out of it. No one even has to touch the account anymore. So that's what we go for.
So more education.
Yeah. That's the word of the day.
Yes. Bill, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, not so much from the healthcare industry, but if you go to Verizon today and you form a new account with them, they offer you $10 credit to sign up for autopay. I don't know if you can do that in your vertical, but they incent with a carrot trying to create the behavior they want. I've also seen it that there's a fee if you stick with paper billing, if you make it a difficult process. I'm not an advocate of either. I think it just depends on how you want to run your business, but there are proven methods using both carrot and stick that will increase auto pay enrollment.
Great. So we have time for one last question. I'm going to send this one to Rebecca first because I know you had talked about it earlier. But do you think we will see a rise of alternative payment methods such as like crypto, like Bitcoin in the future? What do you think, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. That one makes me laugh because I think we actually went out and did a Bitcoin integration like, oh gosh, 5 or 6 years. I think we were like a little ahead of our times and it didn't quite take off yet, but yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it always typically starts in retail where we're seeing a lot of these trends. So I think Bill mentioned buy now, pay later, something that's I think getting talked about a lot more in the healthcare space. So absolutely, it's tough to like exactly pinpoint what like the latest and greatest trend will be, but we've got integrations with like Venmo as one example that I think has been quite popular with the millennial generation, for example. So not just limiting it to that example, but yeah, in short, absolutely. Again, it's tough to predict, but I think I would say keep a close eye on what is trending in terms of popular payment and tender types in retail, and odds are 3 to 5 years down the line it'll become more heavily requested within the healthcare realm.
Yeah. So Belinda, I know you're at a smaller, more rural hospital. So do you ever see this happening for you?
No. No. I just see, just probably just more with your credit cards and, that kind of thing, and online bill pay. I don't see Bitcoin taking effect so much here, maybe in, a larger population. But as of right now, no. And I hope it doesn't. But you never know. 5 years from now, it might be something totally different that we'll have to deal with. So. But that's where, I just don't see it yet.
Right. Bill, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with Rebecca. I think that, Venmo and Cash App, I think we'll see more and more of that and Visa's version, which would be Visa Direct as a payment vehicle. But as it relates to crypto today, we're really just talking about letting these bits and bytes enter our system as a fiat currency. And this may surprise you. There are a decent and growing number of Visa credentials that are funded by crypto. So while Belinda might not be seeing crypto, it is possible that she sees it as a Visa transaction, but it is funded by crypto. That's more likely of a scenario, but you have crypto by itself. I don't envision that without some stable coin element becoming a real point of sale payment vehicle.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you, Bill. Okay, so that's all the time we have for questions today. And I want to thank Rebecca, Bill, and Belinda once again for an excellent discussion. You guys were great. And thank you to our sponsors, Salucro and Visa, for making this program possible. So finally, thank you to you and our audience for participating today. We'll hope you join us again in the future for another Health Leaders webinar. And this concludes today's program.